Now, one thing I hear all the time is I can't breathe through my nose because my nose is always blocked. So what am I supposed to do? Well, there is a natural way to unblock your nose. Unblocking your nose comes down to 3 simple steps, but each step is very important. So step number 1 is to clean your nose. Now you might be wondering, well, I showered today and I washed my nose when I showered. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the inside of your nose. So before you start, you want to make sure that you consult your doctor about this and go over what you're going to do with them, especially if you had some sort of nasal surgery recently. So the first step to cleaning your nose is to blow your nose, right? Pretty obvious. But you want to do it correctly. So you got to do it one nostril at a time. The second thing you want to do is a saline rinse in your nose. Now, this is something you can do right before sleeping. A really popular brand is one by Neil Med. It's called the Neil Med Sinus Rinse. You can get it on Amazon or any drugstore. And when you use this saline rinse, you want to make sure you lean forward as far as possible over the sink. And this will prevent it from getting down your throat. And it'll also make sure it enters all your sinuses. Now, some of this solution might enter your ears. If that does happen, it's okay. It's not a big deal. It's going to fall out on its own. There is a way to prevent this saline rinse from getting into your ears. So as you're putting this rinse in your nose, keep making this cut sound. No, it sounds weird, but as it's in your nose, keep making cut, cut, cut. And this will help prevent it from getting into your ears because now your soft palate's going to start getting activated. Now, when you use this saline rinse, you're going to put it in one nostril and it's going to come out the other. If you've never done this before, it's going to feel really weird, but you're going to get used to it and it's definitely going to help clean out your nose so you can start breathing through your nose again. And you probably want to put half in one nostril and half in the other to get the best results to clean your nose properly. And if it does enter your ears or if it does feel like all of it isn't coming out right away, it's not a big deal. It will work itself out eventually. You can even try blowing your nose after to get some more of that out or even bobbing your head a little bit. But don't worry, it will come out. Now, the last step to clean your nose is to use a nasal spray. So my favorite nasal spray is something called Clear, but it's with an X, so it's spelled Xlear. This nasal spray has xylitol in it. So xylitol is very cool to use in a nasal spray for a few different reasons. First is it's a surfactant. So this is what's used in a lot of different detergents, but you're not putting detergent in your nose. But this is what helps that xylitol keep your nose clean, and it's going to help remove a lot of debris and other junk from your nose. Also, it's an antifungal and antibacterial, so it's going to further help prevent any infections and keep everything clear. So you're going to want to use this 5 times a day. I know that sounds like a lot, but this is the best way to make sure that you get your nose open again, because when your nose is stagnant for such a long period of time, it gets more and more clogged and it's really hard to start using it again. This is why so many people cannot breathe through their nose. But once you get through these steps, you won't have to do this every single day. Now, after you use this nasal spray and you blow your nose, you're ready for step 2 unless you have allergies. Now, if you have allergies, we're going to add one extra step at the end of it, and that's to take an allergen. So Claritin or whatever your favorite different antihistamine is, you're going to add that as well. Now, step 2 is a nasal opening exercise. Now, the way to do this exercise is you're not going to use your mouth at all. So you're going to keep a finger over your mouth, and you're going to take a small inhale and exhale through your nose. And you're going to start walking while holding your breath. So after you take that breath, pinch your nose and take as many steps as you can until you have a very strong urge to breathe. Now, I want you to be careful here. You don't want to hold it as long as you can. If after you're done with this part, you have to take a very deep breath and it takes you like a whole minute just to recover, you held it a little too long. You want it to be a strong urge, but you want to be able to recover after a couple of breaths. So once you have that urge to breathe, you breathe in and out through your nose and you start controlling your breathing. You don't want to take very deep breaths. Maybe your first breath or two can be a little bit bigger, but after that, it should calm down a little bit. And after that, you want to have relaxed breathing only through your nose for 1 minute. And again, you want to try to keep this breathing very silent and hard to see. So you don't want to see like your stomach or your chest rising or anything like that. Try to keep it very minimal. Now, as you're recovering and as you're breathing through your nose, if you open your mouth again and you start breathing through your mouth, you also are going to start over because you messed up. And you'll find that if you open your mouth to breathe again, your nose will probably congest very quickly again. Now, you're going to repeat this exercise for a total of 6 times. So again, the steps are, you're not going to use your mouth. You're going to only use your nose. You're going to take a quick inhale and exhale, very light breath, and you're going to walk as many steps as you can until you have a strong urge to breathe. Now, if you don't have a lot of room to walk, or you don't want people to watch you doing this, or if you're in a confined space, you don't have to walk. You could just start bobbing your head. Now, this will look a little weird, but if you're alone, then who cares? But basically what it's going to look like is you're going to hold your breath and you're going to start bobbing your head back and forth. Kind of like that. And this is kind of doing the same thing, and it's still going to work, and it's still going to help unclog your nose. So whichever one works better for you, either way, you're going to take 1-minute breaks, only breathing through your nose, and you're going to repeat this exercise for a total of 6 times. Now, step number 3. If you made it here, congratulations, because this is the easiest step of them all. All you're going to do is tape your mouth shut. Now, you can use any different tape you see online. There's something called 3M micropore paper tape. There's different types of tape that have a hole in the middle so that they kind of resist your lips from being closed, but they don't actually force it to be closed. But at this point, you should be able to breathe through your nose all night long. So if you're doing this right before bed, this will help you sleep while breathing through your nose all night. Now, I recommend if you're just using one strip of tape to do it vertically and not horizontally, because this way, if you have to breathe through your mouth, you still can through the sides of it. Now, again, there's other types of tape available. You can find whichever one works best for you. I don't really think it really matters too much. Just make sure it's safe for the skin. And when you're taping your mouth, some tips you can add are, 1, to fold the edges of the tape. Now, this will make it a lot easier to remove. And this is something I had to learn the hard way because it started ripping out my mustache and my beard hairs, and it was very painful. So folding the edges can help a lot. And also, sometimes these tapes can get really sticky, and you don't need it to be that sticky when you're putting it on your face. So just dabbing that tape on a cloth 2 to 3 times will help a lot and make it not so sticky, but it'll still be sticky enough so that it can resist your lips from opening and encourage you to breathe through your nose all night long. Now again, you don't have to do this exercise every single day, but if your nose is really congested and you haven't used your nose to breathe in a while, it's going to take some work. It's not going to happen overnight. And the more you use your nose, the easier it will be, because the more it will start dilating your nasal passages, because you're basically reminding your body that you have this nose and you have these wonderful features in your nose, and it'll start allowing you to breathe through your nose some more. There is some science behind it, but that's basically the dumbfounded way of looking at it. Now, if your nose is always dormant, it will most likely always be blocked, because mouth breathing actually causes nasal congestion. So mouth breathing is why people's noses are blocked in the first place. Now, you might look at me like I'm crazy, but you have these breathing receptors in your brain. And one of these breathing receptors is responsible for looking at the volume of air coming in and out of your lungs. And if it sees that the volume is way too high, then it's going to try to block how much air is coming in and out. Now, this breathing receptor basically assumes that you're breathing through your nose. So if you're breathing through your mouth, it's not going to register that. But the thing is, when you're breathing through your mouth, the volume of air that you're exchanging in and out of your lungs is way too high. And it's way higher than it would be if you breathe through your nose. And the simple reason is mouth breathers tend to take these shallower, quicker breaths, and they start breathing quicker and quicker. And they're doing this upper chest breathing, and this is just increasing the amount of volume of air that's being exchanged. And what happens is you start losing CO2. So CO2, or carbon dioxide, is this molecule that's produced in your body, and this is what we exhale. When we breathe out, we're breathing out excess CO2. Now, the key word here is excess. If we're breathing out too quickly, now we're losing way too much CO2. And we're not talking about excess anymore. We're talking about CO2 that our body needs to be metabolically healthy. So the CO2 is what controls our blood pH, and it also helps deliver our oxygen to our cells. And if we lose too much CO2, then our body is going to try to resist breathing as much so that we can retain some of the CO2, because our pH can get thrown off. And if our pH in our body gets thrown off, then our cells cannot live anymore. So the CO2 is very important. This is why this is happening to your nose. And this is why you have so much mucus being produced. Because when your brain sees how much volume of air is being exchanged and it realizes that you're losing way too much of the CO2, it starts blocking your nose and it starts producing more mucus in your nose. And this is going to resist you from breathing. And the problem is you keep breathing through your mouth so that it's a never-ending cycle and your body keeps producing more and more mucus. This is why you have to train your body to start using your nose again. And this is why it doesn't just happen overnight, but the more you use your nose, the more you're going to regulate these CO2 levels, and the more you're going to dilate your nasal passages, and the more easier it will be to breathe through your nose. Now, also when you breathe through your nose, your body produces a molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a very powerful molecule, and our body needs it. It's both a vasodilator and an antibacterial. So nitric oxide is going to help prevent you from getting sick, and it's also going to help dilate your blood vessels and dilate your breathing tubes and make your breathing way more efficiently because it helps exchange that air in your lungs a lot easier. Also, there are some studies showing that your nose has these receptors in your turbinates. So your nasal turbinates are an anatomical part of your nose, and as air goes through these turbinates, it can help temper and humidify the air and make it easier for our lungs to handle. When air flows across these turbinates, it also stimulates your tongue to get out of the way. So by simply breathing through your nose and having this air go through your turbinates, your body is going to push your tongue out of the way to make your airway more open. So when you breathe through your nose, your body is making your airway more open on its own, and this does not happen in mouth breathing. Now, let's say you do all these steps and you still cannot breathe through your nose. You try to sleep all night and you have to rip that tape off and nothing's working. You still have to take that tape off. At this point, it's time to see either an ENT or an allergist because something is anatomically wrong. If you cannot breathe through your nose all night long, then something is not normal and you need to go see a specialist to either get a surgery or something done because something is preventing you from doing what humans should be capable of doing. The average person will breathe about 12 to 20 breaths a minute or 30,000 breaths in a single day. So if I told you to hold your breath right now, how long do you think you could go between your next breath? If you want to try it right now, pause the video and go ahead. If you were able to hold your breath for about 40 seconds, well, congratulations, you are considered